From the exciting beginnings of Chicago Justice to the brutal cancellation while only one season in, what happened to Chicago Justice exactly? First and foremost, when Chicago Justice premiered back in March of 2017, the audiences were ecstatic to say the least. Not only were they excited for another installment from the iconic franchise, but they were equally excited to see John Seda return as Antonio Dawson. The reappearance of Antonio Dawson was among Justice's biggest plot points, the one fans were most anticipating. To put it lightly, this was a huge moment in the Chicago franchise world. In fact, this was Antonio's third series. On Chicago Fire, he was first introduced as Gabby Dawson's brother. Later, he appeared on Chicago PD, and then on Justice. So to say it was a big deal for the show's fans would be an understatement. So what was the series about, and what made fans so excited? Well, Powerhouse creator Dick Wolf promised to deliver a captivating new installment to the hit Chicago franchise. Just like their brethren in the Chicago PD, Justice would include the same hard-hitting format while taking a different route, one fans had never seen before. Instead of focusing solely on all the crime and the action, Justice dove into everything involving courtrooms and prosecutions. In the show, the state's attorney's dedicated team of prosecutors and investigators navigate heated city politics and controversy head-on, while also fearlessly pursuing justice. The fact that they take on the city's high-stakes, often media-frenzied cases is what made this spin-off sound so exciting. The cast was also tasked with balancing public opinion, power struggles within the system, and, of course, their unwavering passion for the law. Sounds pretty damn exciting, right? Which is exactly what fans were thinking before its release. They were in for a treat. The fourth series in the One Chicago franchise also filled a major void left by the franchise's fellow sister series. There was never any particular focus on the city's legal system. But that was where Justice would come in, promising viewers a real-life feel as they tackle the controversial, high-profile cases we often see today. There was obvious fan interest and solid ratings for a show that had one of the most erratic schedules in broadcast history. But out of nowhere, NBC pulled the plug on the series after just one season, making it the first and only Chicago franchise series not to make it past its first season. Yikes! It was not a good look for the showrunners. But what did fans really think of the series? Well, considering what we just said, this may come as a surprise, but many fans enjoyed it. Why? Because it dared to turn right instead of left. While the other three series were built on action, Justice showed us that there's action to be had in the courtroom too. The show also took on the hardest, most controversial, and most divisive topics facing the United States today. It did so head-on, without giving up an inch of ground or taking the easy way out. With just one season, it packed some very intense discussions into 42 minutes, while also educating the audience on the ins and outs of the law. What other show can say to achieve that? Not many. Interestingly, fans desperately wanted a revival or at least a second season. Many took to Twitter to air their frustrations about the cancellation and their pleas for Justice to return. One user wrote, "Justice should have never been canceled. I'm still so sad and mad, honestly, and I miss Ana Valdez so damn much." A second shared the same idea. The show should never have been axed. It was an awesome show. While another viewer believed Chicago Justice deserved a second chance with a different crew in the future. And while viewers seemed to adore the new show, the network didn't. 2 words: low ratings. Now, the ratings are typically the best indication of a show's likelihood of staying on the air. It's pretty simple. The higher the ratings, particularly the 18 to 49 demo, the better the chances for survival. But in Chicago Justice's case, the ratings appeared low from the very beginning. That's not a good sign. For its one and only season, Chicago Justice averaged 1.5 adults 18 to 49 rating versus 1.9 for Chicago PD and Chicago Med and 2.3 for Chicago Fire. Additionally, the first episode saw 8 million viewers tune in. But as the episodes continued to come out, more and more people began tuning out. For the second episode, 7 million, the third, 6, and by the end, just 4 million tuned in. Compared to Chicago Fire, which continued to pull in 6 to 9 million viewers across 10 seasons. That's a massive difference, right? No wonder it was canceled after just one season. But was this really the reason behind the axe? More on that later. But first, how did the cast and crew react to the news of the show being canceled? Well, Detective Antonio Dawson, played by John Seda, was definitely sad that the show didn't make the cut. As we mentioned earlier, he was already a familiar face. So when Chicago Justice premiered, he made the leap. But after Justice was canceled, Detective Dawson made the move back to Chicago PD. However, in a statement to the Chicago Tribune, the actor called the return a little bittersweet. Another lead on Chicago Justice was also able to escape the sinking ship. Assistant State's Attorney Peter Stone, played by Philip Winchester. But he also felt like the cancellation was a bitter moment, upset that the new show didn't work out in the end. This brings us straight into our next point. Why exactly didn't it work out? Was the second season canceled solely due to poor ratings? Or was there something else at play behind the scenes? To this day, fans still question NBC's decision to bring the show to an end, often questioning the motives behind the decision. And while many have looked to the show's ratings as the culprit for Chicago Justice's cancellation, it seems the show's demise actually came at the hands of another Dick Wolf franchise. Just a few months after its debut in August of 2017, NBC chairman Robert Greenblatt opened up about the decision to cancel Chicago Justice. The chairman disclosed that Justice was sacrificed because the show was too similar to Law & Order. Additionally, NBC reportedly saw Chicago Justice as the most disposable choice because it is the most conventional series in the franchise. But many believe the real reason the show was canceled so quickly is because every one of the shows that did get picked up had strong outside influences that drew the network's interest. For example, Law & Order SVU was never going to get the axe since it brings in a lot of extra money for NBC. Taken didn't get cut because it has made more money because it sold well to international networks. Trial and Error was renewed because NBC wanted something more comedic. Shades of Blue, which happens to be produced by the one and only J-Lo, was never gonna get axed since Jennifer Lopez has such a strong relationship with NBC. As you can see, it didn't really matter about the ratings. Justice just couldn't bring as much to the table, and one of the shows had to be canceled. There simply wasn't enough room for all the shows to take place. I mean, have you ever seen more than 4 Dick Wolf shows on TV at once? It's unheard of! There you have it, from Chicago fans ecstatic for Chicago Justice's debut to the real reason the show was scrapped after just one season. That is everything you need to know about what happened to Chicago Justice.